Okay, all right. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining our program today. And before we start our webinar, to gain the barakah, let's recite Al-Fatiha. Okay, amin amin ya rabbal alamin. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and very good morning to everyone. And welcome to our program today, organized by IIUM Library Kuantan, entitled The Research Data Management at a Public University, University of Malaya Experience. And the objective of this webinar basically is to introduce the idea of the research data management, or we call this one is RDM, to IIUM stakeholders, and to share the University of Malaya's experience in putting the research data management in place. So we hope that at the end of this session, the researchers will have a better understanding and importance of the RDM, as well as to benefits of the incorporating the RDM into the research projects. So with a clear knowledge of the RDM, so that would be able to support and take a part in the future RDM initiative that led by our university. Okay, so before we start off our webinar today, let me introduce our speaker for today. We are very blessed to have Dr. Nurzatil Sharleeza Jalaluddin from University of Malaya. Dr. Nurzatil Sharleeza basically is a senior lecturer at the Center of the Research in Biotechnology for Agriculture, University of Malaya. So prior to this, she was a project manager for the Malaysia Open Science Platform at the Academy of Sciences of Malaysia. She also represented the MOSP in the Global Young Academy Open Science Working Group since June 2020, and the Global Open Science Cloud since August 2021. Currently, Dr. Nurzatil is an ex-official member of the Malaysia Open Science Alliance, a member of UM Open Science, and the principal investigator for the Fair Data Stewardship Guidelines for Biodiversity. This is a project that funded by IIC Europe and also the Academy of Science Malaysia. So I think that without further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Nurzatil to present her sharing session as well as the lectures, and of course that any question that you may write down in the chat box, then we will discuss at the end of the session. Dr. Nurzatil, the screen is yours. Thank you, Doctor.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Vidya. First of all, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good morning. Thank you very much to the IIUM Library for inviting me to share the experience that we have in University of Malaya. Of course, again, this is a sharing session, so don't make it too formal. During my presentation, feel free to ask questions at the chat box. We can also, I'm happy to be here, not to just share what we have, but also to learn from UIA as well. Okay. All right. So just a bit of outline to the presentation today. So as Dr. Vidya has mentioned just now, I'm actually an ex-officio member of Malaysia Open Science Alliance. So I'll start my presentation with a bit of background about open science, which very much related to the research data management and also the National Initiative Malaysia Open Science Platform, MOSP. And then I'll move a bit forward to some theoretical perspectives about research data management, like the definition, the importance, the components of it, and what are the tools and services available out there. And finally, I think the quite an exciting part. I guess, I mean, the ultimate aim of this sharing session is about the experience from University Malaya itself. So the way I'm going to approach this is to show you guys like our approach in terms of the top-down approach. We have the UM Open Science Initiative. And also at the same time, I'm going to share with you several slides about the Respire project, which pretty much how UM researchers actually get involved in these research data management activities. And yeah, and at the end of the presentation, we'll share some, I guess, key takeaway messages from this presentation. Okay. All right. So to some of you who might be new to this open science terminology, okay. So what open science is all about is to make a research output, such as data, for example, to become more transparent and accessible. So it's about extending the principles of openness to the whole of research data lifecycle. Okay, basically we want to diffuse the knowledge through digital technologies and new collaborative tools. This is where we have, those platforms, repositories, etc. Because, at the end of the day, as we see from years back in 1990s and even until now, since the birth of the internet, we can see that we all researchers, we make a lot of data, and the data, grows volumes by volumes. So there must be a way for us to not just share data per se, but also to manage this data to make it, shareable with those stakeholders. So in Malaysia, we have this so-called the pilot project Malaysia Open Science Platform, MOSP. So if you have not heard about it, you may actually go to the website. I put up a link on this, which under academyscience.gov.my/MOSP. And the idea of open science, when we talk about sharing data, I'm sure that some researchers, especially the younger cohorts, they are pretty much a thought about, we have kind of like have a conception, I would say it's a misconception that sharing data, like you make everything open, but sharing data in this case is actually following the principle. It's kind of like a global standard, actually, following the principle of FAIR principle. So it's a F for findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. So the idea of this, putting this or imparting this FAIR principle when sharing research data is that you want to make the research data as open as possible, but as close as necessary. So what does that mean is that so there are some data that you can share with others or even with the public, but under open science, under the FAIR principle, we also recognize that some data, like those sensitive data, you can say those related, those that have some kind of IP or commercial implications, or those that are related to personal data, those from the medical faculties, medical research. So we understand that these kind of data need to be protected in some ways. So that's why we have the tagline we call as open as possible, but at the same time, as close as necessary. Okay, so like I said just now, open science is about making scientific research data transparent and accessible to all. If you look at the Malaysian research landscape, and I'm pretty sure that this statistic also involves data from IIUM as well. Yeah, we have millions of, we have thousands of papers out there. We have thousands of researchers. So all these talents actually produce a lot of data. So at the end of the day, our country generate a great wealth of research data. But the problem is with the accumulation of this data, the accumulation of this knowledge, is that we have several questions in mind, like what happened to the data if it's not published, right? Sometimes certain publications, I would say most publications actually, we put up good data in the publications because we want to, support our hypothesis, put out good conclusions in there. But along the journey, we actually conduct experiments that, well, experiments fail, yeah, but at the end of the day, those results, although these coming from the failed experiments, they can be also useful for others. So we are looking for this kind of data as well, to benefit everyone as well. So that's number one. Second is, so is the created data lost or be stored somewhere? So again, without a platform or a shared repository, often researchers, what we do is we store our data in our own laptop, computer, or thumb drive, or even our personal drive, right? So those I would say those locations, those data storage medium, yeah, they are not shareable. Something that can be the places that that doesn't make our data shareable to others. So that's a problem with our practices nowadays. So and again, another point would be like, those professors, especially, when these professors, they generate a lot of data. Imagine they have a lot of grants, generate a lot of papers, and I'm sure they generate a lot of data as well. So what happened to this data once they retire? Yeah. So, these kind of data, they are like oil, is very beneficial. And it could benefit others. It could also benefit to the country as well. So that's the idea of open science, to maximize the utility of the generated data. Okay, so that's about data sharing, open science. Okay, so when I mentioned just now that we want to share data, you want to make sure that the data is findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. And remember the tagline that I mentioned, as open as possible, as close as necessary. So meaning that there are some principles, there are some rules, there are the processes, the protocols that we need to make sure that we know how to curate the data, the research data, so that it is shareable to others. So this is where there's a terminology we call it as a data, not we, I mean the global people, they coin it as a data stewardship. So the idea of data stewardship is to introduce how to preserve the data in the long term. Yeah. So it goes about preserving data. It's not just your research data, but also at the same time, the metadata. So metadata is the data that describe the research data. That's what the definition of metadata is. So why we need these things, okay? So, imagine researcher can put any data on a repository without describing it, without curating it. So if you imagine that not just one researcher doing it, let's say you have 10 or hundreds of people doing it, now that repository will become like a bin, like a garbage bin, yeah? Because you can dump all your data in there, but it's not well curated. So we don't know what that data is all about. So that's why data stewardship is very important, because the data needs to be curated so that the researchers, not just from the same field, but also from other fields also, can actually understand and make use of the data. Having said that, make use, we have to understand that you're making use of it, and say that you have to acknowledge the person, the creators of the data as well. Yeah, that's the best practices. Anyway, so data stewardship is about active curation. It's about preservation of data over an extended period. So that's what we call as a data stewardship. Okay, now the third terminology that I would like to, I guess this is the whole idea of this presentation, this sharing session, is research data management. What is research data management? It's about the organization of data. So if you look at the diagram here, yeah, we have, this is a general diagram. I mean, some people, they use 5 stages, some they use 6, but pretty much they have this quite a similar basic skeleton of what research data lifecycle is all about. So they're starting from the entry point, where I call it acquisition, Yeah. And then it goes to processing, analysis, curation, sharing, and reuse. So starting from the entry point of the research data lifecycle to the dissemination and archiving of the valuable results. So research data management is very important for every stage of this data lifecycle. Just make sure that, again, as the name it goes, we want to manage the data. We want to organize the data so that at the end of the day, we can disseminate it, we can reuse it to build, for many, many benefits, like including creating new knowledge, creating new innovations, etc. This is some of the examples, quite an important ones, why RDM is important, or I can say that, why the RDM advocators will say it's very, very important. So first of all, it's about compliance. So what does it mean by compliance is that, as a researchers, we will apply grant funding, right? So some of the funders, especially the international ones, so if you have applied the grants from Europe, for example, they'll definitely specify about the requirement for RDM. So some of you might be familiar with the data management plan. So that's an example of RDM practices. So that's one. Of course, second one is the institutional policies. So in Malaysia, maybe this is something quite new to us. In fact, open science RDM is quite new to us. But eventually, over time, there will be more and more institutions develop their own policies on RDM. So once these policies are developed, definitely we as researchers, we have to comply with the policy, with the RDM policy. The next one is about productivity. I guess we all understand that if you can manage the data through the data lifecycle, you increase the efficiency to manage the data, save times and effort in the long run. I think that's quite self-explanatory. The third one is reduce data loss. So what does that mean is that there are some cases that if you don't manage the data well, you can lose the data, or even you can accidentally disclose the confidential data. So RDM in this case is very, very important, in which you'll be able to identify what is the nature of your data. Is it confidential or not? So that's why this RDM is important. The fourth one is about cost efficiency. So again, I guess it relates back to the idea of open science, the idea of where we want to fully realize the full potential of research data by preserving the data and ensuring that the data is accessible to the others in the long run and can be reused to benefit own or other researchers. That's what cost efficiency is all about. So you don't want to, let's say researcher A apply for a grant, for example, and get a project, generate the data, but you don't want to have another researcher in maybe 5 years later, perhaps, applying for the same or similar project, So that's not cost efficient. That's a waste of public money, definitely. So that's the idea of this RDM. You want to fully utilize the research data that is already produced by not repeating the same cycle. Lastly, it's about reliability and accuracy. That's about the integrity of research. So once, having a well-documented data that indicates the authenticity of research and the reliability of research findings. So that's very, very important, especially, if we are researchers, we are working with those from other institutions, even with different countries. So how do we want to be as certain that, this research data is authentic or has integrity? So that's where RDM comes in. Okay, just a bit of background about, when I say about data lifecycle, some of us might think, oh, who are responsible for these things? What are the roles for each of these data lifecycle? Because, and then that's not really easy to say, actually. There's a lot of people play a big part in ensuring that the RDM is fully implemented at an institution. Here are some jargons that actually I put out this poster, which is a poster created under the Malaysia Open Science Platform. Now, if you look at this diagram, we can see that there are many different people in an ecosystem of data sharing or even in research data management. Now, if you look at the entry point, just now I mentioned acquisition, we have data originator, which are actually researchers, in other words, yeah. We also have data owner, yeah. Those who actually who owns the data usually is organization like IIUM, University Malaya. And then we also need those who will assume the role of data stewardship, because these data stewards are very important. They will provide advisors, support to, especially for the RDM, yeah. So it's not just data management plan per se. It's also about the governance. It's about policy, ethical, what are the legal considerations. So data stewardship plays a very big, important role actually in this data life cycle. So that's data stewardship. And then we also have data custodian, the IT people, who's accountable for the technical aspect of data storage, access and transport process. That really means that they look after the platform, they look after the mechanisms, the processes, just to make sure that, we have different levels of data, yeah, and this data will have different levels of security as well. So these people are accountable to make sure that, there are security mechanisms, for example, for certain types of data. That's one. And of course, if you want to make it very technical, not just security, we have backups. All those very technical thingy. Yeah, that's data custodian. And we also have a data user. So that could also be researchers who are using it, or it's the public. So again, data user have the responsibility. They're not just by assessing it, but if we want to reuse it, the responsibility of this data user is you have to give fully acknowledgement credits to the data originator or the creator of the data. Okay. All right. So what are the components of RDM? So I put up about 6 here. So first is about data sharing. So the idea is we have to think what are the tools, what are the services available, how to preserve and share data so that the data can be reused by other researchers. Data storage, how to store the research data, what kind of platforms you're talking about, and back up that effectively so they are protected. Data repository, what would be the most suitable repository for your data? Yeah. Data retention, what should be stored, what data should be stored or archived in the long run, and for exactly how long the data will be kept. So this is something that many institutions will spell out those, the retention time for the data in their own institutional policy, and that actually will be practiced across the campus. Next one is the data security, how to ensure security and accessibility of different types of data. And finally, it's about RDM planning, how to make sure that the RDM is properly planned from the start of a research project. Okay, I guess, so I guess from this presentation onwards, we will try to explore these components of RDM and putting up some examples of how also UM is trying to, tackle all these aspects of RDM. Okay. All right, I'm just going to skip this. Okay, so UM open science stages. So if okay, so the idea of open science is really a process. Yeah, what I mean by the process is that when we start something to build the data sharing culture or practices on campus, first of all, is we need to lay the foundation. Yeah, what does it mean by foundation? Is preparing the groundwork. you have to bridge or bring the stakeholders, all stakeholders in an open science ecosystem. So these stakeholders, remember when I said the roles just now, yeah, the stakeholders must communicate between one another so that we can create this ecosystem for open science or for research data management. Because at the end of the day, open science is not just about like, you know, some may say library is doing it. No, that's not just library. So we need people in ecosystem to push that RDM forward. So that's foundation. The next one is growth. So once you have laid the foundation, you have the policy in place, you have the stakeholders have the same idea, same mission towards RDM, is you will need to start build the capacity. So like, for example, the data stewards, for example, those who will help the researchers, who provide support for the researchers to preserve the data. Yeah. So we need to build that capacity, and we need to start creating the ecosystem and the process. What are the steps by steps to do to, let's say, for example, how to make a DMP, for example. So this is part of the growth. And finally, of course, once these practices are already in place, started to being implemented, we'll think about the next stage. Very important one as well is to make it sustainable. So I just put up here to become a culture and part of the daily lives of the researcher. So it's not just really about the culture, sustainability. Also, you know, you can think of many other aspects. Like the financial sustainability, I can think of that one only at the moment. But yeah, so this is the stages. Yeah, from foundation, you want to grow it. At the same time, you want to sustain it, because you don't want it to suddenly lose the engine along the way. No, you have to make sure that you keep on pumping in, pushing forward. So that is sustainable. So where is UM open science at the moment? We are really in between, I would say overlapping, I guess, between the blue bullet point and the green bullet point. We kind of like, we have prepared some, we have laid the foundation, like for example, I can show you later what foundation is. We have put up our own policy for research data management. We also have our own committees, actually, that consists of different stakeholders, you know, so at least we are sure that you know, these different stakeholders, we have kind of like similar idea about where we are heading, yeah, in the future, in an open science or RDM ecosystem. And we are also some kind of in the part of growth stage, where we have started to practically train our data stewards, and also start to create ecosystem and process. So I'm going to explain a bit more on what we are doing now, what we have done actually in UM. Yeah. So these are the aspects that I'm going to touch a little bit about the policy, about the governance, data stewardship, the repository, awareness, outreach, and also training and events. Okay. So in terms of a policy, so actually UM has put up the research data management policy. I think it was approved back in March 2020. So what are these? Okay, so in this policy, actually, what are these requirements that we talk about? Yeah, under the RDM policy, we talk about the ownership. We talk about data management plan. That's a very, very important tool to actually when we talk about the RDM planning, right? So this DMP is a very important tool for RDM planning, even from the start of the project until the project ends. So that's what the role of DMP is. About the deposit, data sharing, retention time, disposal, archive, and also the cost of managing research data. So these are some of the requirements of RDM that were described in this research data management policy. We also talk about the key roles and responsibilities for under the RDM policy. So if you look at the list of the roles here, we can see that there are many stakeholders involved. Like I said, not just library. So we have the university management, the top management, the university management, the IT center, research management office. Okay, in some universities might say research RMC. Okay, the academy faculty centers, the PIs, the researchers, and also, of course, the library. So these are the roles and responsibilities that are the people that are very important under this RDM. Yeah. Okay. All right. So the next slide, I'll talk more about a data management plan. Okay, data management plan. So what is data management plan? Like I said just now, it's a very important tool for RDM planning. Yeah. Actually it's a formal document that will help the researchers to plan their research project before, during, and after the research project. So I put up a website here, yeah, just for you to have a look, just read about why the MP is very important. And there's actually a number of funders, especially Europe, US, they have asked about completed the MP as part of a grant application. So actually, if you are, at the moment, if you are applying for an international grant, you need to submit, mostly you need to submit a DMP. Of course, it's a very simple one. It's not usually when you submit a DMP for a grant application, it's usually a very concise one, like 1 or 2 pages, maybe. But they ask for it, okay? So it's important to create a DMP, especially for any project involving the collection of primary data. So usually when you send the MP in a grant application, will be a very short and concise one, but the MP is a living document. So once, let's say, you get a grant and then you started to implement your research projects. So maybe every 6 months, I don't know, it depends on the institutional policy, right? And guidelines, every 6 months maybe, or every or year, you will start updating your DMP. So your DMP will get a bit longer and longer until the project ends. Okay. So what actually the elements of DMP? It should contain how you handle your research data during and after the end of the project, what data to be collected, processed, and generated, which methodology and standards that will be applied, whether the data can be made or shared open access or not. Okay. And how the data will be curated and preserved, including after the end of the project. So that's what the DMP is all about. So again, if we can reflect back to the idea of this RDM, the idea of DMP is we want to make sure that we plan how we handle the research data from the beginning of the project, until the end of the project. Some examples of the MP templates, you can find it quite a number of examples actually out there in the Google one. Those that in UM we like to refer to Digital Curation Center. It's an example of this data management plan. So yeah, there you go. This is what I mentioned about the DMP before and during the project life cycle. Yeah, when you submit DMP to a funder during the grant application, that's the first version of your DMP, and it should be the concise one. So in some other countries in UK, in Europe in particular, they provided the DMP online tools, to create DMP according to the funder's requirements. So pretty much practically, as a researcher, you just need to do like drag down menu box. It's very simple. So they kind of like have a default setting for DMP. So it's not something that we have to write from scratch. Okay. But then once you prepare all these things, the DMP will be reviewed by the RDM manager. So that could be, I don't know, that could be a data steward, for example. So that's the idea. And then once you get the first version, you can use that to submit to the grant funder. And then once it's approved by the funder and your project has started, so that's where the DMP needs to be updated over time, especially when there are significant changes to your DMP, like you have new data, or during the project, then suddenly you saw the potential of the data to be commercialized, for example, and you want to file a patent. So there are some changes in the policy itself, you know, how you want to make the data accessible, right? In that clause, in that part. So you have to update the DMP. So yeah, DMP is a living document. So you need to keep on updating if there are certain very significant changes arise in your project. And perhaps there are some changes to your project team composition. So definitely you need to update that one as well. Okay, so what are the key elements in a DMP is really about it's a set of questions that you as a researcher you should answer with the level of detail appropriate of the project. But I guess that's the role of data stewards also, to actually assist the researchers on how you can answer the questions. Again, you're not making paragraphs like it's too long or what, but just enough just to make clear for these elements, what are the principles, what are the rules that are applicable to your research. Yeah. First part is the data summary. I don't want to read all these things, okay. But the second part is the FAIR principle, the FAIR data. So how do you make the data findable, you know, accessible, interpretable, and reusable? Then the allocation of resources. So whether your institution provides some cost to make your data fair, how to, you know, what kind of costs you're talking about here now, what cost needed to preserve the data for long term, data security, the ethical aspects, and other issues. Pretty much this kind of like a default, the subheadings here are pretty much kind of like default setting for a DMP. But, you know, the way how you're going to answer the questions is really, that's where the data stewards will really support and give advice to the researchers how to go about this. Okay, I think that's the last slide for the DMP. So I'm moving on a bit on the UM Open Science governance. So in UM, we have a UM Open Science Steering Committee. So I'm actually a member of this UM Open Science Steering Committee. Our responsibilities actually, as the name goes, steering. We steer the direction and implementation of UM Open Science initiatives, review all proposals, guidelines, and action plans for UM Open Science, and we verify the needs related to UM Open Science implementation. For example, the RDM framework, guidelines, policies, etc. So at the moment, our steering committee actually is chaired by the DVC Deputy Vice Chancellor, Research and Innovation UM, Professor Dr. Sharleeza Ibrahim. Our members, we are very, very fortunate that the members that we have actually, the key representatives from the very important roles in an RDM or open science ecosystem. So we have Associate Vice Chancellor Infrastructure and Information Services. So this actually portfolio handles the IT, even the library as well. Yeah. And then we have the head of the Data Intensive and Computing Center, which also provide the helps into sort of technical support for the repository. We have the IIUP, or we call it as a Research Management Office, or MC, in some universities, and we have also researchers, okay, joining these members. So this is our the composition, our steering committee at the moment. Yeah. Okay. So when we talk about the UM Open Science ecosystem, I imagine something like a spider web. Yeah, we have different people, yeah, different kind of people that are needed actually to build this RDM or open science ecosystem. So of course, when I talk about steering committee, it's all about decision making. But at the end of the day, when we go to the level of implementation, we need the people, you know, to implement, yeah, to implement the RDM, to make it as a culture on the campus. So researchers, we all recognize widely that researchers, they are the data originators. They generate the data. at the same time, we recognize the Research Management Office, the RMC. This very important is their role actually to look after the policy for RDM, the guidelines, the strategies. So they are more on the policy part of the RDM. But then the library. So the librarians here, they are the people that used to have the traditional roles of the librarian, to become the data curator. Now they have to upskill themselves to become the data stewards. So that's where, and after that, once they become the data stewards, they will conduct those awareness, capacity building activities. So, you know, I vision that maybe in the future, so they can train the researchers actually on this RDM, and not just researchers, we're talking about the lecturers, it could also be the doctoral students also. Yeah. So capacity building, awareness, metadata management, and data quality. So libraries, they are very good at metadata. So there's no doubt that they can handle this metadata management. Last one is the IT services, the Pusat Teknologi Maklumat, the ICC. They actually the data custodian for this research data. They will help in terms of the infrastructure services, storage needs, security, etc. So this is basically the basic, the ideal situation of how to create open science or RDM ecosystem in an institutions. In particular, I guess this is more relevant in a university setting, I would say. Yeah. Okay. So speaking about the training, when I mentioned just now, we actually have sent almost 20 people from UM. So people, what I mean here is mostly they are librarians, but we also send quite a few actually from research officers. So these are the research officers from research centers in UM. They participated and completed in the training of trainers data stewardship on open science. This is an online training organized by the Academy of Sciences Malaysia under the pilot project that I mentioned just now in the beginning of the presentation, the Malaysia Open Science Platform. So I'm not quite sure if IIUM has actually joined these modules. I mean, I think this is a very great opportunity as a starting point actually for the librarians or anyone who wants to be the data stewards to actually learn what open science is, what RDM is, because really what they provided during the training is although they are, you know, they provide in online, so they're quite theoretical in a bit, but at least we sort of have some kind of a good foundation about what data stewardship is, what RDM is all about. Okay, so the MSP training, they have first part and second part. The first part is several modules touching on open science. The second part is more on data stewardship. So I guess the second part is more detail, more detail. And now actually we put up the third one actually. So when I say just now, remember the MSP training is an online course, so quite theoretical. So these data stewards, after they have been trained with the modules, they need hands-on training. So what we're doing now actually in UM is we put up a pilot project for the first cohort. So these 30 data stewards involved, and we get 13 PIs, researchers. So they provided us with research data from 30 research projects. Okay, so 2 data stewards were assigned to 1 research project together with the principal investigator. So the data stewards will help to develop a DMP and manage the research data for respective project. So so at least, you know, these data stewards, they actually have the opportunity to first to play their role as a data steward, meaning that they have the opportunity to communicate with the researcher, with the principal investigator. That's one. And of course, during the communication, they learn, you know, what is the research project in general, because some librarians might have the knowledge of the subject matter, right? But some might not. So that's a bit tricky there. So so these data stewards, they need to have some background knowledge here about the subject matter. So at least they know how to write a bit on the description of the project, for example. So that's one. And of course, developing the DMP. So again, at the moment in UM, I can safely say that we don't have a kind of like fixed template for a DMP. We are still exploring, what a template looks like for the DMP, right? Because sometimes different kind of research projects kind of like have a different formats that are more suitable for the project itself. So that's why so these data stewards, they explore different templates out there, and they adapt to it, according to the research projects they are assigned to them, and they completed and developed the DMP. Okay, and then our IT people, they actually have used the open source platform Dataverse as a repository platform for this training, for this pilot project, to like a playground for them to play around. Once you have the MP, you help to develop the deposit, the data, etc. So this is an example of how the Dataverse that we use in UM at the moment. So it's pretty much like I say, it's a playground, for them to play around, to get the feel of putting out the data on the repository. Okay. Okay, that's the capacity building. At the same time, library also has put up a web page on their library website to promote and create awareness about open science. Okay, that's an initiative by the UM library. And then, okay, so basically that's kind of like the end. At the moment, pretty much sums up our activities under the UM Open Science Initiative. What I'm going to show you here an example of how researchers in UM, this is from the Faculty of Medicine, they actually have started doing all this RDM on their own. Actually, okay, so this is an example showing the importance of RDM for a multi-collaborative research project under the Respire project. Actually, the project started in 2017. So I guess back in 2017, RDM, open science is quite something young, not fully established in UM yet. So that's why these researchers came in and they actually learned a lot from the key collaborator of this project. I think it's University of Edinburgh, UK. So this Respire project is a multi-country project. Therefore, the proper research data management is very important to ensure the integrity of the research work. So what I say is very, very important. Again, it's not just about integrity, accountability, it's about long-term availability, appropriate sharing, and of course, they receive a grant from UK funders. So that's a part of the important thing is they have to comply with the funding agency requirements. So when they started this project, a data management platform was distributed to all Respire partner countries. Okay. And I guess it's about, I want to just reiterate again why we need the DMP is, especially for this kind of project, is we want to make sure that the data is handled well during and after the project completed. Again, this is not just about UM data. This is about UM and also other partners, in that big project. So it's very, very important to have that DMP. And then they also have this, University of Edinburgh has set up a data repository for the researchers, to actually deposit the data on that repository. So at the end of the day, by sharing this, they have the way for them to establish and validate their research findings. And of course, putting out the data, it goes back to, what kind of the nature of the data itself. If there are some formal agreements, if this is sensitive data, then this is something there are some exceptions applied to that. Okay, so in terms of data storage, so all this data was also stored in locations or devices owned and maintained by the Respire project data manager at UM for UM projects. They have the storage data, but at the same time, they deposit the data on the repository hosted at the University of Edinburgh. And then in terms of data security, so when put up the store the data, so they want to make sure that the data is password protected for all devices and files. And in terms of data retention, under the project, actually, they kept for no more than 5 years after the project completion. And all this research data were archived in the University of Edinburgh Research Data Management Platform. So this is kind of like practices that these researchers under the project, Respire project, actually have practice started. At least, these researchers, they have the awareness, they have the hands-on experience about how to, implement the RDM for their own projects. We are very happy with that. Okay, so pretty much the last 2 slides from today's sharing session. Basically, what are the takeaway messages that I would like all of us, including me myself, learn about the sharing session is why RDM is very, very important. Remember, I put up several logos there. 4 important things is the compliance, productivity, reduce data loss, and cost efficiency. Why we need this data sharing, why we need this archiving. Again, it reinforces open scientific inquiry, it promotes new research. When you share the data, when others can make use of the data, we can make new research more productive in a sense. Enable the exploration of topics that is not envisioned by the initial researchers, and we can create new data sets from multiple sources when combined. So what's the fundamentals of RDM, of the stewardship, of the archiving? We have to understand the life cycle control. We have to understand who takes the role in each life cycle, in each data life cycle. We need to understand it's very important to have the policy in place. Yeah, the ownership. We have to recognize who owns the data. We have to know the metadata. Again, different. Although Darwin Core is the standard metadata, but different fields may have their own specific metadata standards. Yeah, and that's very, very important to recognize, to understand that. And then data quality, and of course, above all, I think it's about the FAIR principle. I always advocate this, that open science, RDM, you are not promoting open data. You're not promoting, can share all data. No, not really. You need to understand that we want to make it as open as possible, as close as necessary, meaning there are conditions, there are circumstances that we have to be aware of. We have to, understand that not all data can be shared, under certain circumstances. And what are the appropriate RDM tools and services? Of course, what I shared today pretty much quite theoretical in a way, although some of what I mentioned quite a number of examples of what are tools and services that we can do, but there are many other resources out there that we can actually explore how to actually help researchers in particular to implement the RDM. We all understand that researchers are very busy people. You can't do things on your own. We need tools, we need IT things, we need all those systems to be automated, etc., to make things easier. But I can't emphasize enough about the importance of data management plan. The MP is very, very important. Then we need the repository, we need storage solutions, and of course, we need data security. So I guess that's the role of the RDM committee members, to explore what are the tools out there that, they can address all these needs, when we want to implement the RDM tools. Okay, just before I end, actually, UM Library together with the Department of Library and Information Sciences, I think. Okay, they actually plan to organize this in November and 15 to 17 November. So actually this is a research data management for librarians. So I think this is a physical workshop, okay, for several number of days. But this pretty much summarizes the key components of RDM. So if you're interested to join the workshop, please feel free to go to the UM Library website, search for this research data management for librarians. I'm very sure that you gain quite a lot of insights, understanding, pretty much learn what are the possible ways to help researchers to do the RDM, to apply RDM in their own research activities. Yeah, I think that's really it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Nurzatil. Very interesting, informative, as well as comprehensive. I think the information that you have shared with us. So I believe that many of participants, I think, that would like to ask a question to you, Doctor. I think that I will start to, okay, Dr. Mazna Zakaria, are you there, Doctor? Would you want to ask? Yeah, please ask directly. Yes.
I'm not doctor, I'm just a librarian actually.
Okay, all right. Okay, please, sister.
So, so I'm conductor. So is it necessary for the university to have its own repository, or we can just use the platform out there like Zenodo, Picture, and so on?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Sister Mazna. Okay, that's a very good question. I guess there are pros and cons when using the available platform like Zenodo, and as opposed to your own repository. If I can just take the bias one, put the bias aspect, why we need own repository. Okay, imagine like for example now, you have let's say at the moment we already have UM ada, forgot what is the platform. We have a platform for publications, right? Okay, we have our own platform for publications, and why we need that? So of course, once we have our own control over one repository, as a librarian, as even you can answer to the top management how many statistics downloaded, right, from the repository. That's one. So in a way that you can justify the visibility of the research data produced by your own researchers at the university. That's one, visibility. So same thing goes to if you put up your data on research data on the repository platform, right? You can track, can trace how many downloads, who downloads it, because you end up with having the user feature, username features, betul? So you can trace all these things. That's one. Secondly, if I can say from the bigger picture point of view is to have that own repository, you can facilitate the control over RDM, the DMP document, and as in linking it to the data as well. And that's very important, yeah. And thirdly is if I can relate to the Malaysia Open Science platform. So I don't have the slide actually showing you the structure of that Malaysia Open Science platform, but because also that in the pilot project at the moment, they MSP actually only involved the 5 research universities. Yeah, unfortunately it excludes IIUM, but I'm very sure that once they embark on the 2.0 and onwards, they will include more private universities. In fact, we actually received quite a number of interest from private universities to actually wanted to be part of this MOSP. So if I can just tell a bit more about MOSP's architecture. So MOSP is like a portal. Imagine like portal Yellow Pages or Google. You have the portal, yeah, that's at the national level. And then when anyone wants to search for the keywords or any research data, they will link it to the own repository at the university. Okay, and that's why a repository on a university itself is very, very important. So to support this national initiative, okay, once you're linking it to the national repository, at least the user, the data user wants to access the data, will go to the data repository dekat university tu, yeah, not to other platforms, etc. But I understand that we have to acknowledge that that's the ideal, that's the vision of MOSP, actually, to have our own ownership over the repository. That's one. But I'd like to get your attention too, that if you look at the Australia National Data Service, yeah, they also have that kind of architecture. They have the portal, ANDS, and then certain universities have their own repositories, but the way they work is based on projects as well. So they also link to certain projects that actually they put up the research data on platforms. Like you mentioned, Zenodo, Figshare, they are also there. Okay, so they are really pro and cons. Macam tu lah. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Dr.
Ada lagi, Sister Mazna, do you still have any question? No?
Actually, I have one more question there.
Okay. Sure.
What is your biggest, what is the UM biggest challenge when you all want to embark in this initiative?
Okay, thank
Because
you for the
I believe that
question.
this mandate must come from top to bottom, right? Instead of bottom to top.
Betul. I agree. It has to come top to bottom, not bottom to top. Okay. Experience now is based on what I presented. Yeah. So basically, I'm sure there are more challenges coming into the future. But speaking about based on the slides that I presented, I think the biggest challenge is to get commitment from the full-time staff at the university. Not to say that they are not doing well, they are not committed. No, they are committed, but they also have their own tugas hakiki, their own work. I think this is very, is similar to other institutions. That's why that is something that is the big challenge in UM, but I think in Malaysia in particular, because we all know it's not easy to get new, ideally, of course, to train data stewards, ideally is you get new people dedicated for data stewardship support, ideally, but we are now upskilling the librarians, but we all know librarians have their own tugas hakiki, have their own jobs. So unlike, if I can share, those, I'm not sure if you have heard, if those in Europe, take a look at University of Utrecht, Netherlands, for example. What they do actually, they get the PhD holders. They train them with, these PhD holders, they are subject matter. So they don't have to be trained with the subject, but they will be trained with crash course librarian skills. The metadata, curation. So because we don't learn that in labs, so we have to be trained in that sense. But they have the capacity to hire these PhD holders to be the data stewards. They are not using the librarians per se. And then these PhD holders, once they are hired, they will put them into each faculty to assist the RDM, servicing each faculty. So that's very, to me, that's an ideal arrangement lah. If I have the money, if I have the PM, of course, I would like to go for that pathway. That's easy. I mean, let's not burden those who are already in the workforce. Why have to burden? But anyway, that's how Malaysia is. And that's, I would say that's the biggest challenge at the moment for UM. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Doctor.
Yeah, Doctor, I think that I have question actually is, following your statement just now, is it like, the financial implication, this is quite, is another challenge as well. Maybe you can share with us actually about this financial implication for this data management, the RDM.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, sure. Thank you, Dr. Vidya. So I guess financial implication, one, when we talk about talent, when we talk about the workforce, so because in our country, we go for the strategy that we are upskilling those already in workforce. By right, actually, there's no implication in that sense. Yeah, you don't need to fork up more money to hire new people. Okay, that's good. But to me personally, I think the most challenging part is the repository. We all know repository, especially if using the open source is free, that's fine lah. But if we are using something like contoh F1000 or the Elsevier one, those the paid service providers, so over time it will cost something, cost something. So that's why in Malaysia at the moment we are just started, so it's difficult for us to say that the project is not going to sustain or what, we just started, we just exploring. And in fact, the MOSP pilot project actually received funding from the government. Yeah. And so in that sense, at least for the short period of time, it kind of like safe lah, in a way, you kind of like safe. But if I can just draw examples from other countries, yeah, how they manage things, because they also started with government funding in the beginning. So eventually what they do, actually, they started to provide services to the other, those who are interested to put the data in the repository. The service, I can't remember the services. Maybe you can have a look at ANDS, for example, as a benchmark. First, they provide services, maybe in terms of training, in terms of, I'm not sure what others, but that's one. But another model is actually what they do is the consortium type model, financing model, which means that those actually who join the project, they'll get incentivized for the funding in the beginning, but at the end they also put up the money, put up some money to actually make sure that the project runs. Macam tu. That's how they do. Yeah.
So basically the portal to free, Doctor, we don't need to pay anything for this.
Talking about MOSP, at the moment memang is free. For the pilot project, yes, it's government funding. But talking about 2.0, honestly speaking, belum ada lagi lah. Nothing yet at the moment. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Doctor. We have another question, I think, from Dr. Irni Izwah Abu Bakar. Okay, Assalamualaikum, Dr. Nurzatil. There are many grants offered under my grant, Mohd, Ministry of Health and Education. And then, do Mohd requires the MP for researchers for all grants under my grants?
Okay. Well, I like this question. Actually, that's my wish list, but it's not there yet. No, not yet. But just to let you know that under Malaysia Open Science Alliance, so that's basically the highest committee for MOSP lah. We have representative from KPT, from the BKPI team, if I'm not mistaken, those actually who are looking after these migrants, those FIGS, etc. So we actually have started initiate conversations with KPT since 2020, I suppose, during the COVID time. So talking about this, the MP, talking about this open science, actually more on talking about open science. But I guess what's important, what's really needed now is to have one ministry to take the lead to show the DMP lah, I suppose. I'm not sure who's going to take the lead. Perhaps Mohd should take the lead because this project is under Mohd. I wasn't quite sure about that. But at the moment, to answer your question, it does not require the MP. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Edni. All right, so we open to any more questions if still.
Assalamualaikum.
Yeah.
I am Hashima. I have a question on the RDM policy. Okay, from your experience, having a policy, does it solve most of the issues in this process, or are there still matters that needs to be catered, especially from the library or research management center?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hashima, for the question. Okay, a policy is pretty much like, can I say instruction? Not sure lah, but it's kind of like principle lah, where we are heading. But speaking about RDM ni, we need more detailed documents than policy. So at the moment, UM is is in the process of detailing out the guidelines and the processes, the how to do this, how to do that, those things. I think those documents will be helpful for the librarians in particular to implement RDM. Policy is just a basic guide. We all know retention time, how many years, that's it. But as a practitioner, the one who at the implementation level, we need the detailed guidelines lah, how to do these things, how to do that things. I think that's one is we are developing it, but that's the one that is more important, I suppose, for librarians. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, any more questions from participants? We still have like plenty of time until 11:13. Okay, I think one more question, Dr. Zati, from my understanding just now, looking at yours, yang spider web tadi tu kan, is one of
Okay.
them tu, like one of them too ada is like if I'm not mistaken, the UM steering
Committee.
something. Yeah, the role as a decision maker dekat sini. So just my question actually is, what decision actually that they need to make in this
Okay.
Yeah.
I think this quite something is quite similar to other universities. After at the ground level, we have the implementation, the librarians, all sorts of things, and then after that, the layer above is we need some coordinator perhaps to coordinate those things, and there's a working committee to actually put up a proposal or planning, yeah. And then after, once you have the document, let's say you propose something, so it will be brought up to the steering committee for decision. Usually it's that case and at our university, that let's say approve ke apa, then we can put up to the highest management lah. It's really like the layers of management lah.
Okay.
That's how it goes.
I think one more question from our boss actually is the Prof. Amir from RMC Gombak, doctor. What is the role of this research center in this effort, or is it mainly with the library?
Okay, thank you, Prof. Amir. A research center, I'm assuming the researchers, I suppose. Okay, all right.
RMC, I think this
sorry?
center. The role of RMC, I think.
RMC, oh, it's RMC. Okay,
Yeah,
RMC. Okay. Sorry, I misunderstood. Okay, RMC. Okay. I can share from UM perspective lah. We put RMC as the one who look after the policy related to RDM. So the librarian will focus on the data stewardship, the how-to things. Provide support for the researchers on how to, but the policy, like monitoring the policy guidelines, so whether it is implemented, whether it actually comply with the funders, and that's the role of RMC, because RMC knows better about this research process, about the application, research grant, etc. So that's why that's the role of RMC lah, to look after the compliance in particular and monitoring the implementation of the RDM, the policy of RDM. That's, I can speak from the UM experience.
So is it okay, Prof. Amin? Okay, all right.
Okay.
Any more question from the participants?
Doctor, I have one more question.
Yes.
Yes. In your experience, siapa yang lebih sesuai untuk to be the champion or to lead this initiative? Is it the library or the RMC or the department in charge for the IT support?
Leading
siapa
leading,
yang
I always like to say is the top management lah. So if I look at the DBC portfolio tu, who's leading it? So it depends, library, is it under which portfolio if you want to top library? But to me, that's a good question. Who should lead?
Who should lead this initiative? In a university, like for example in IIUM, library, of course, we are under the Deputy Director of Responsible Research and Innovation. And then the RMC also under the same Deputy Director juga lah. So in this initiative, siapa yang lebih sesuai to lead or champion this initiative? Is it the RMC or is it the library?
You want to compare between RMC or library?
It's not a compare.
Not compare. I mean like between this deciding
siapa yang lebih
these two.
sesuai lah to lead this initiative?
Alamak, Rahmana.
Sorry, sorry.
Sebab I suka tengok benda ni as alliance, consortium. I don't see someone should step one step ahead. Macam mana? Because I'm in the view that library has a strength in this way, in this certain aspect. RMC ada strength in this aspect. If you ask a library to do all these things, you can do kalau library have a good rapport dengan researchers. The problem now is, not the problem, the challenge is the library has a good rapport dengan researchers. That's one. Because usually RMC, yes. RMC, yes. So here's the thing. Who's the thing is, to have this move forward, I mean, of course, library, RMC can do all these things, no problem. But we need the data. The data comes from researchers.
Yeah.
So kalau I punya jawapan, it will based on who has the more better rapport to the researchers, the client. I don't want to say it's client.
Researcher kan?
Researcher. But don't take it like that. It's more like collaborative lah. I think it's collaborative. You should specialize. Librarian awareness capacity. RMC looking at policy. Macam tu. I don't know. That's my point of view. I might be wrong.
Actually, we have sent our librarian for data stewardship too. Because we wanted to start this initiative actually for IIUM.
Sister Mazda, which cohort is it? Second cohort ke third cohort?
Yang first hari kita dah ada 2 batch sent for the data steward.
So did you guys follow up after that? I mean, after coming back from the TOT tu?
Maybe ada participant dalam ni yang can answer that question. But I tak join.
Okay.
But we have a few lah yang dalam ni join that data steward.
Yeah, to me personally, it's always good to follow up from that. Sebab if you look at the content, it's very theoretical. Not to complain or make bad remarks with that. It's a good model. It's a good modules altogether. But UM sendiri, when I look at actually in the nature of that, I evolve like from the point of view as a researcher. So when they create the DMP, I review and make some comments how they to improve the DMP. So the way when I participated in their meetings, discussion, the way I see it is the hands-on activity is very, very useful for them to build the confidence. Again, sebab this RDM thingy is not just you go to the TOT, you learn, come back, nothing. So you need to have that continuity. You need to practice. What we learn is very theoretical, actually, dekat TOT. So you need to practice. You need to build confidence. To talk to the researchers is not easy. Researchers are difficult to handle. Kan?
Yeah.
Then Dr. Vidya, kita susah kan orang nak handle kita. So it's not easy. so
quite challenging for us, Doctor, for the librarian to handle researcher actually.
Because I always say to the librarians, that's a challenge for the librarian. We don't speak the same language. I pun struggle nak faham librarians because you like to use words like semantics. What are those things? I'm a biologist. I'm a biotechnologist. I don't know what semantic is. But at least I get to know through this initiative. I learn. But imagine you speak those words to the researchers. What do they think? And then you're not a doctor. Let's fill up a DMP. Like, so that's not easy. But it's good to have the hands-on lah. If I can provide one advice.
Some of the researchers think that kita bagi dia new task, additional kerja.
Possible if you ask them to fill up the form yourself. That's why when I share kan ada DMP tools online too, that's really helpful. At least for the researchers, they don't have to fill up. They click je, tick 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 tick. Just macam options from the online tools je. So that's quite easy. But the day-to-day work, how to do it. I mean, at UM we are also learning from those with best practices, how to make things easier for both parties, librarians and also researchers. Yeah.
Doctor, another question that comes to mind. Okay, when UM implemented the RDM policy, what is the acceptance level, especially from the researchers?
Okay, thank you so much. I think I forgot to make a disclaimer here. I have to make a disclaimer here that remember I told you that the policy was approved in 2020. But until now, actually, it's kind of like we don't officially announce yet. We don't officially announce yet. And that's the reason for that. Because we are building, remember the chat growth though? We are building, training these data steward librarians. So we are in the decision that if we have not prepared them ready, confident enough to handle with the researchers, it's difficult for us to announce that. Macam tu. So we have to train first.
So is there going to be some sort of assessment to see their, readiness?
I don't think there'll be assessment because we are really a small number of people. Like just now I mentioned 13 kan. I think it's like 20 lah at most for the first cohort will be ready to be the data stewards. I don't think they will be assessed, but at least they at the moment our planning is first diorang dah buat hands on, that's one, and they will have more opportunities. We're going to have more dialogues with those researchers who already have done this RDM, so get them to understand researchers' point of view. So like the one just now I mentioned, Respire project. So on the next thing to do is to get them involved and learn from that project how to do things.
So I can pick up from here that having more dialogues with the researchers is one of the efforts that we can get their buy-ins.
Dialogues, hands-on,
Yeah.
exercise.
Okay.
Exercise. Okay. I probably have a question to IIUM sebenarnya. Actually, maybe just a little bit background about what is the current situation at IIUM regarding the RDM, if I may know about it.
Maybe Sister Mazlan boleh jawab?
Oh, I okay, I can respond to that, insyaAllah. Actually, for the library part lah, kita masih macam baru, still macam on the awareness part, Doktor. Dan kita adalah juga jumpa lah Prof. Amir, nak tahu jugalah RMC punya view on this RDM ni lah kan. So we are in the process of kita dah prepare one survey on the readiness of our researcher if we want to embark in this RDM initiative. So we want to know lah data macam mana yang diorang ada, apa data yang diorang willing to share, some that kind of things lah. So kita dah siap dah prepare that survey, tinggal kita nak disseminate the survey to all the researchers lah. So kita nak tahulah macam mana penerimaan diorang lah. I mean macam mana penerimaan the researchers if kita nak buat this RDM. Kita juga in the planning nak draft the DMP lah for IIUM insyaAllah.
Okay, fantastic. That's a very good sign. Congratulations IIUM.
Alright, I think ni library dah ambil inisiatif dah ni, tak perlu RMC kot.
Thank you very much. We actually from RMC, sorry okay, so we are keen to collaborate with the library on this effort, but then we also understand there are measures that we need to able to educate our researcher on the use of RDM.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
All right. Okay. Any more feedback or questions to our speakers today? Okay, I think that if no more, I would like to remind again. I think that Sister Nurushi would like to share the flyers for the next the next RDM session with the private university will be in that on the 3rd of November 2022. So I think that everyone is invited to attend this session so that we can I think that listen from another perspective from the private university so that we can have more information regarding this RDM. I think boleh I think that everyone maybe can share these flyers to the other members as well. All right, if no more, I think that question or
boleh ada last question tak?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Sorry Dr. Widya.
Yeah, yeah.
Baru terfikir about the MOSTI kan. Dr. Sharleeza Nurzatil tadi mention ada platform kan for open science ni. And this platform is funded by the government kan. So let's say lah, kalau lah let's say lah kan IIUM ni dia nak to be in how I'm going to say this.
Okay, I understand.
To be
included.
So,
my best advice to you is you can email to MOSP team. Itu kan ada website tadi I tunjukkan.
Yeah.
Just email them, get a sharing session. Well, not sharing lah, just meeting lah online ke. Just talk about your interests in this MOSP. That's the best actually. At the moment, actually, the platform, the IT part for the MOSP, the platform is not live yet. I think there's a date already when to get it live, but I forgot when is the date. Belum ada lagi. Because at the moment, the 5 RUs we are in the middle of process to getting the tools and also to put some data in it. So the platform is not live yet at the moment, but considering IIM is very interested to be part of this MOSP initiative, I definitely strongly encourage you to talk to the MOSP team.
Sebab kata kalau nak develop the repository, we need to have macam financial lah kan, financial capability.
Betul. Yeah, that could be a way also. Like the one, I'm not sure, yang macam UM, we have database, if I'm not mistaken, it's open source.
Data repository.
Database tu.
Database.
Yeah, at the moment when I say the playground one tu, it's an open source and something I think is adaptable to others. I'm not an IT person. I'm not sure, but that's the point I pick up when I talk to the IT people speaking about database.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you very much, Sister Masna as well from the library for pointing out so many, I think that's concern, before we start our own RDM in IIUM. All right, but I think that's a very good move so that inshallah in the future we can see, I think that some improvement in terms of our research data management. All right, so before I think that we close our session, all right, thank you so much to our very honorable speakers, Dr. Nurzatil from UM. I think that's very useful for us, as a beginner as well here in the IIUM. And then before that, we should close our session with Tasbih Surah Kifayah and Surah An-Nas. All right, thank you everyone. Thank you, Dr. Nurzatil. Assalamualaikum.
Thank you, Dr. Nurzatil. Thank you, Dr. Vidya.
Thank you, Nurzatil.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Vidya. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi
Session.
wabarakatuh.